let me show you what's going on here. Here's my next challenge. You know, I just can't ever leave anything alone. So we have these mounts, and you'll recall we were going to use the center hole and the center hole on this mount, and that worked just right for our angle of the dangle when we put the motor in the hull. Motor? Is this a motor? Yeah, this is a motor. An engine is fuel powered, a motor is electric. And so we were using our far rearward slot and our middle one here so that we had this nice broad grip, and we needed to anyway for the sake of this water jacket. But now look at it. Can you see the problem? Can you see the problem? The water jacket is well rearward, as it were, on the motor. So I'm cooling this area really, really well, but I got no cooling back here. No good. So I want to center the jacket on the motor. And here's how we're going to accomplish that. I want to center it. I want it back here. See how that's more centered on here? If I can get it here. What have I got? About a 1/2 inch. Slightly over, but pretty well centered. That's where I want to be. I want to cool the whole thing, not just one end. So, how are we going to mount it? This solves two problems. Problem number one. Open holes are ugly. I was already thinking of, boy, I need to get little set screws and put them in there and plug that because that doesn't look good. Or turn this baby over, drill new holes, and now we're going this way. We're moving this rearward on the motor. Oh, by the way, 3 wraps of hockey tape. I wrapped it 3 times. This fits it really nicely. And then I took a razor blade around and cut it so I eliminated the excess tape. Okay. Somebody mentioned this was a really cool idea, and I thought about it for a while, was using shrink wrap. If you've ever used shrink wrap to seal wiring connections and so on, he said put a large piece of shrink wrap over there and heat it. And I thought that was pretty cool, but I wanted a really fast way to solve this clamping problem if I had to do it at the pond. Okay, I got to swap this motor really, really quick. I want to grab hockey tape, make 3 wraps, and put my motor in. If I got to be able to do it quick, I got to be able to do it quick. So I dig the idea. Keep the ideas coming. I have put many of your ideas into practice already. Not that one. I dig it, but I'm not going to do it. Okay, so now, I have my full range. My little holes are not exposed, so it looks really cool. I got the jacket centered. I got this guy where I want it. We are just about ready to go. Now, let's build our mounting plate. Remember, we're going to attach the mount to a removable plate that'll come in and out of the hull, because I think it's really cool, and so that we can retain our nitro function if we want with a quick swap. Yeah, this took some figuring to get those holes in the right spot, but take your time, figure it out. It wasn't that hard. I would have shown it to you, but it was, like most things that I do, it involved 2 days of thinking and about an hour's worth of measuring and calculating and finally drilling. Okay, so that's what we're using now. Looks cool. It is appropriate for our positioning. This guy now clamps on there really nicely. And we're in like Flint. Here's the deal. See how this is loose? It has O-rings inside, and you theoretically, with great effort, slide this onto the motor can. Doesn't fit right. Here's why. This is a 40 millimeter jacket on a 39 millimeter can. Same issue we had here. If you buy this stuff from Bill Brandt at Rattlesnake RC, he's already figured this out, and he has come up with the correct O-rings to go in here to make it fit nicely and not leak. And these he provides with this motor, with this water jacket. So I thought that was pretty cool. That was a nice feature. It's something I didn't have to figure out myself. Okay, so we now have this ready to go. We need to build our plate, right? We're just going to set that in there real easily like that. By the way, here's the thing. These wires, they are going to bend just like that. However, I'm going to flip this mount because I want them coming this way. Remember, our ESC sits right here. These are going to sit, and like most things I try to do, I'm going to bend them until they just have a nice casual fit onto the wires here. Okay? And there's a reason for that. First of all, these are very stiff. You might have noticed that already. Somebody commented on on the first video that it looked like these were really small. They're not small wires. It just has very little insulation on them. It's actually lots of wire. You may be able to tell there. But they're very stiff because they are merely a continuation of the windings inside, and that's kind of a heavier wire. So it's not a real fine wire like the wires coming out of the ESC where they're really flexible. These are a fairly coarse wire, and so they're very stiff. And as you can see, they're coming just straight out of the metal jacket here. And what you don't want to do, there's really not a whole lot of material there where they're glued as they're coming through. You don't want to have these pull loose here. So we don't want any tension on them. You certainly don't want any tension on them against the can. I have heard of these wearing through, and that's not good. So we're going to run just a real casual bend, and it's going to go that direction and just connect really nice, okay? But that is after I flip this over. Haven't done that part yet. So this sits here. That actually winds up at about 40 thousandths clearance, because our plate is going to be made out of, actually it's 45 thousandths G10. You know, I haven't found a good source for 45 thousandths G10, and I don't remember where I bought this, and this is the last of my material. If you know where to get some 45 thou G10, let me know. Okay, great stuff. Hard, ain't going anywhere. Saves me the trouble of having to make a fiberglass plate, and it is stronger. That stuff is brutally strong. And so anyway, we set this in here. Here's going to be our mounting holes. Aluminum screws. You knew that without me even telling you. And so what we're going to do is we're going to build, I don't know if you can even read that, about 4 3/4 long. Will get me a little bit beyond that hole, and will get me a little bit beyond that forward section of the carbon mount. Okay, 4 3/4. Width-wise, I want to be a respectable distance beyond the holes, not an insane amount, so it doesn't look too silly. I think about 3 1/4. So I'm going to cut a 4 3/4 by 3 1/4 piece, and I'm going to lay it in here, and I'm going to look at it, and I'm going to say that looks silly, and then I'm going to draw on it, and we'll make a little bit of shape to it so it looks like all professional and stuff. Okay, already marked it here. You're going to use your Dremel tool forever on this and wear down your cutting wheel, or you're going to get one of these cheap bandsaws from Sears or wherever, but yours is not going to say M5 Performance on it, though it should. I was just thinking, I'll bet I could make one of my videos go viral if I take a finger off while I'm doing this, huh? That's a good idea for you. You do it. See that? I went just a little bit crooked there. Can't have that. Somebody'd see that. That somebody's me. Nobody else would ever notice. We're just kind of smoothing those edges, even though I'm probably going to cut some of it away. I want to give this some style. Okay. There is our motor mount plate. And after we get it shaped however we want it, all kind of cool. Oh. Well, that dummy didn't think of that. Okay, I'm going to have to cut it out here in the middle because that ain't going to work. That bothers me a little bit because that's going to remove some of the strength from it. Okay, let's mark that and we'll cut that and then we'll see what we think of how well that, if that'll still be strong enough. It'll be fully closed across the back and it can be fully closed, looks like, across a little bit of the front. So that may work well and it may not. I'm going to do some drawing and then I'll come back to you and we'll see how this works out. Okay, I think that's it. Can you see it? A whole bunch of lines. You know, I just kind of measured how wide it was where it was going to stick through the floor, and it would kind of taper back as it goes to the rear. Does that make any sense at all? Anyway, just kind of measured it out, did a bunch of figuring. This G10's kind of cool. You can draw on it with a pencil and then erase with just a regular old eraser. Maybe it'll make a little more sense. I don't know. You might not even be able to see this at all on that camera. But it makes sense to me. And that's all that really matters, right? I don't know. Maybe you can see it. I think it'll start to make sense here in a minute. Let's cut it. Come on now. This is the only way to fly. Get you some of these step bits if you don't have them already. It's a great way to just get some stuff done. We got to cut that inside part, and we don't want to cut to the edges, obviously, because we want to maintain some strength. Isn't that cool? Not too worried about exactly where I'm cutting right now. Don't want to go outside my lines, however. Look at that. Awesome. That's a good enough one. Here's another thing you got to buy. Little scroll saw. We're going to pull the blade out. And this is going to destroy this blade. I hope it's a decent blade, so I'm not having to put a new blade in it. See, we just kind of slide the blade out like that. We'll drop it through that hole. Tighten her back up. Put some tension on it. Drop our guide down. Good to go. But I told you before, this stuff's kind of hard, and these are cheesy little blades. Gonna rip through a ton of them. Hopefully we can get this job done with the one. It's gonna be noisy. Hang tight. You don't want to be pushing too hard because that'll burn that little blade right up. For these little radiuses that I drew, I just used a little socket, you know, a little 5/16 socket, laid it on there and draw around it. Makes your stuff look cool. Of course, it's going to be underneath the motor where no one's going to know but you and me. And even if I don't make it all the way to the line, we can go back in with our Dremel and clean it up. I can feel that blade is already starting to give up. You'll see some real excitement if that blade breaks. This thing goes crazy. Scares the heck out of you. I haven't been skewered by it yet, so maybe you'll get to see that. We'll get that viral video after all. See that blade, you can almost hear it. That blade just completely gone. And I'm really just melting my way through the material now. I know you all are rooting for it to break just so you can see what happens. Don't be like that, man. And there we go. Raise the guide, release the tension. Take out the blade. It's probably hot. No touchy. Here we go. Yeah, I see a little bit ugly over here. I'm going to fix it. Come on. Yeah, we're not quite getting it all. Oh, you know what? I did not consider this little mount here is actually touching. Okay, we'll take that out with a Dremel. Let's see, we're going to need about a 1/4 inch worth right there. Just a little bit right in the middle. See that? Let's mark it. See, here's my little radius drawing tool. Somewhere around there. I think that'll do. In fact, that's probably more than I need. Okay. You guys keep telling me you want to see the full build process, so you're going to have to live through all this. Or shut it off. Come on. About the only thing I use these flap wheels for is to hold that. And I think I have a, yeah. And drum's about gone, but might work. Got to do a little beautification here. There you go. Oh, that's it. Oh, that's going to change the whole world. There you go, look at that. Huh? Don't you feel good about that? I hope it clears. See, where were we? Yeah, this way. Man, I'm still standing on it. I'm standing right here. I was pretty sure that was going to clear. Okay. Yeah, I'm going to have to widen this out a little bit here and take a little bit out all the way down here, which hurts me a little bit because it'll be, you know, I just nailed it. Look at that. Now I got to try to redo it. I got a plan. It's not gross. Come on now. I want a little bit of clearance. I want it to be able to move. It does. I don't know if we've talked about this yet. G-Flex. Okay. Look at those guys. Quebec. Yeah. I used to do big boat racing with those guys. Good friends right there. And as you can tell, we probably won that day. Anyway, G-Flex. It's a 1-to-1 style of epoxy, so it's real easy to mix small amounts. And it is ever so slightly flexible. I don't mean like flex like crazy, but West Systems, their regular resin system is very, very hard. Super duper strong, right? But there's really not much flex, and it can break. In this situation here, I think this is going to take a ton of vibration and a fair bit of flexing, and so I want a very kind of a flexible material, so I'm not worried about it cracking apart. Okay, y'all, let's put this baby in. Here's what we're doing. I marked the plate just ever so lightly, a little light pencil mark, so I know where I'm working with to actually glue this on. It's not, well, hey, backwards, gluing this on. Okay, we're not doing it right here. We're going to do it in the boat. Here's our mounting screws. That's all I use right there. Little aluminum mounting screws, little aluminum nuts. Nothing like having aluminum nuts. I ain't got no big brassy ones, just little aluminum ones. And we are going to glue epoxy, the nuts, to the plate at the same time we're doing the rest of this work. Have my little shims that I've already attached to the back side of the plate. Might be tough to see there. And so we need to mount this in the boat. Then we'll mount this in the boat as we epoxy it all together. Now here's the thing, when you run these screws through the bottom of the hull, and then we want to epoxy the nuts into place, we could very easily epoxy the nut onto the little screw and have a heck of a time getting it apart. So here's what we're going to do. Oh, step one, let me back up. The little nut here, we want to scuff the back side of it just to give the epoxy something to grip onto. So you're going to put it on here, some sandpaper, whatever. Go around a little bit, it takes all the gloss off of it, gives it a nice rough look. Okay, that's what we want. Now that epoxy can bite it. Oh, by the way, I'm going to turn this over and get that running downhill. I just ordered more G-Flex. You know what that means. You do know what that means. It's time to build a boat. Gasser 2.0 coming up. Okay, so, here's how we're going to keep it from gluing itself on there. Oop. PVA mold release. I buy this from Tap Plastics. You can get it probably almost anywhere. Total Boat has one. This is a super light viscosity. Oof, phew, that ought to be enough. Super light viscosity stuff. This can be sprayed in a spray gun. This is what you would spray in a mold to make it release. It's water-based, so it's water soluble. When you're done, all you have to do is rinse the parts off in water, and you're good to go. But anything you don't want epoxy to stick to, put this stuff on it. Okay, I'm just dabbing a little bit here and just going to spin it around them threads. I'm going to put a little bit on the end, right? Because we might get some epoxy there. And it takes a few minutes, but that'll dry. I have already coated these. I'm just showing you. This here, of course, we want the epoxy to bite on the bottom of it, but we don't want it to bite on the threads. I'm going to stick a little bit inside like that. That's all I need, okay? And you let that set up for a bit, and now when we assemble it, the epoxy won't stick, and later, when after it all sets and we're ready to take it out, those little screws will spin right out. The rest you can dump right back in, but you can't wait too terrible long because it does begin to set up. And there you go. You buy one of these quarts, this is pretty much, well, I was just going to say it's a lifetime supply, but I'm hoping I live a lot longer than that. Maybe this is my hourglass. As soon as that runs out, I'm done. But it'll last you a super duper long time. I make a lot of stuff, so that's why that is starting to run down. All right, I think we're ready to go. As I say, I coated these already and they're nice and dry. We're going to put this in the boat. First thing we're going to do is mix up some epoxy. And we're going to put a little bit on each of those nuts, and then we'll assemble them into place, and then we'll put the motor in. All right? This stuff is awesome. I've probably told you about this stuff many, many times. G-Flex. It's a 1-to-1 mix, which makes it really friendly. It starts out with a pretty heavy viscosity, and we're going to mix quite a bit because we're doing a pretty big job here. In fact, I'm going to go a little bit more than that. The hardener is thicker than the resin, so I always squirt the hardener down in there first, because then it kind of spreads out a little bit and I can get an idea of how much resin to put in. If you put the resin in before the hardener, the resin spreads out really fast, and then it's hard to judge whether you have an equal amount. That's pretty close right there. I'm pretty darn good at it because I watch the level as we go. Oh, you can still see some old markings there. And it stays pretty even through the period of time of use. So I'm real proud of myself, as you can probably tell. Another thing I like about this stuff is it has a pretty darn long working time. In other words, it doesn't start to set up, you know, and get gummy very quickly. That's, on the one hand, it's a little bit of a drawback. If you're in a hurry, this stuff takes a long time. But if you're watched my channel long enough, you know that I don't do anything in a hurry. I take forever, everything that I do. And so I'm very slow at applying this as well. So I like and appreciate the long working time that I get from this stuff. And we're going to mix it pretty thoroughly. I'm trying to scrape the bottom, as you can probably tell, and the sides, because you don't want any unmixed material, because that will not set. So I think I have done a pretty darn good job. And here's how we're going to deal with it. I don't know if you can see this very well at all on the GoPro, but you get the idea. I'm really not putting much, just a tiny bit on the bottom of these nuts. My nuts are getting sticky. Gosh, I hope YouTube doesn't censor me for that. These are real-time videos, man. Telling you, if you watch all the way through this video, I'll be impressed. Leave me a message. Let me know if you watch the whole thing. Okay, gonna put a little on our brush here. I want the bottom of this to have a fair bit standing on it. I didn't put any PVA on this piece, so I'm gonna be very hopeful that I don't get epoxy on it. And I'm going to try to avoid that area on the inside here. We're really working the outside of it right now when we put it in. Then I will remove everything and then lay a bunch of epoxy on the inside. So I think we're going to be okay. We're going to do the same on here. Actually, I can do it once it's in. Let's put it in. She sits just like that. Hope my GoPro lasts through this video. This might take us a minute. And forgive me if I get the camera pointed in the wrong direction from time to time. I cannot tell where it's aimed. I think it's close. Probably help if I moved all the pieces closer, but that would take all the challenge out of it. Somebody said they wanted to see the whole process filmed, so that's what's happening. So don't come crying to me if you're not taking it. Here's how that looks on the bottom. We've done countersinks here, so these guys sit flush on the bottom of the hull. Nothing dangling down, except what has to be. Now, that was for nitro. That doesn't even really have to be that big anymore. That's the way it's going to be. All right, so our mount's in place. We're going to wet out where the rails will sit, which is right here. Hope you can see that all right. In fact, I can make that a little bit wider because we're going to be working that whole area. Okay, we're going to thicken this up. Because I don't want it to run away, I want it to stay where I want it to be. We're using 406. Have some in here. Won't take a ton to thicken it up because, as I say, the G-Flex is fairly heavy in the first place. Let's start with that, see how it looks. You can tell we're probably going to have to mix up a bunch more because this is probably not enough. I like to use epoxy very sparingly, but this is an area that I really want it to hold. Yep, see, it's kind of oozing a little bit. I don't know if you can see that. Can't have that because it'll run away from where I'm trying to put it. That's no good. All right, it's got a tiny bit of runaway still. Going to put just a little bit more in. Okay. There you go, right? Peanut butter. That's your target. Not crunchy. Going to stand a little bit on the bottom here. I probably don't need to, but I'm going to. In fact, it might be a good time to push some into those holes. The holes that you see along there, I think we talked about it already, those are intended to be areas for the epoxy to pass through. I got to be careful. I don't want to forget that I don't want to put a whole lot where that front mount is. For the epoxy to bite basically through those holes. You'll see what I mean here in a minute. Okay, taking a look there, I see it's kind of pushed into the holes somewhat, which I think is sufficient. Overkill and big giant gobs do no good, but you got to have enough. Okay, we've got a little bit pushed into the holes, we've got a little bit standing on the bottom there. We're going to put this thing in. Using the same routine we were doing before to get the alignment. Okay. See, I've got some rock to it. We're going to slide forward, rearward, just until that rock all goes away. Okay, right there. Now we know we're in perfect alignment with our shaft and we are against our mount. Okay, does that all make sense? You may or may not be able to tell. I can see a little bit of epoxy oozing out. I'm going to go rearward just slightly. That'll apply a tiny bit of pressure. There we are. No, we're not done. No, we are not done. Beautification now. And reinforcing. This is all one fell swoop. You are probably not going to be able to see this. These little mini popsicle sticks work really good for this. They've got a little radiused end on them right there, so you can create your radiused fillet. And I'm not sure if that'll be enough of a fillet, strength-wise. But that's why I'm doing this, and you're not. If it don't work, then you know not to do it this way on yours. I'm running into and around that nut, which is fine. I know it doesn't look fantastic yet, but we're going to try to do a lot of beautification before we're done. I really had no idea how this was going to work out. Being my first excursion into the world of electronic goodies. I know a whole bunch of you are just crapping your drawers over this whole thing, thinking that I'm a sellout. I'm not giving up on the snap, boom, bang. There's reasons this project is being undertaken. No, I'm not going to tell you. Alright. I am not 100% pleased, but I am not 100% disappointed. I kind of prepared myself for a little bit of disappointment because I knew this would be a difficult area to work in. And that part has proven to be true. You thinking what I'm thinking? Stop and leave it alone. Good advice. I'll take it. All right, next day, let's see how we did here. Let's remove this guy. Okay. If all goes well, these screws will spin right out like that. And that's how that works. Pretty cool. I like it. Now we're going to find out if we glued our mount to the actual, the motor mount directly to the bracket here. I like to try to keep all the stuff the same whenever I can, but you know, so that everything to get the motor in and out are all the same. Yeah, that's different. It's a little bit loose. I mean, that would probably work. Let's try it. Okay, all right. I dare say that's pretty cool. All right, now we're going to scuff this up pretty good. I did before, as I told you, but any place that there's something I can point with. Maybe you can tell, maybe you can't. If I look at it in an angle, I can see shiny areas. So anywhere that I'm going to apply epoxy now, because I'm going to put a whole bead down along the inside of each of these, anywhere that it's shiny, it's not going to stick. You'll think it's stuck, but it's not. You do have to take that shininess off. So we're going to take some 100 grit sandpaper here, and we're just going to work on all those areas a little bit where we're going to apply epoxy now. Okay, I think we're pretty good. Same stuff. Oop, should have tipped it over. Should have been ready. This one looks good. Should run downhill pretty quick. In the middle of winter time, you got to get these ready early. See, you need this special tool right here. This is a tri-Y collector from my former life as a engine builder for full-sized inboard hydroplanes. This didn't work. That's why it's here in my shop. It made less power on the dyno with this. You spend all this money, all this time, and you put it on there and you lose 2 horsepower, and so instantly becomes junk. Let's get her done. Weird digression there yet again. I'll probably just edit that all out. If you're watching this right now and you have no idea what I'm talking about, it's because I edited out a complete wrong turn. Look, that looks pretty even, huh? I might need some more, so putting it back in there. Don't leave it like that forever. It'll ooze out and you'll make a terrible mess. Okay, just like before, we're going to wet it out. Right on down the line here. It's not like this is super porous where I'm really counting on the epoxy sinking way in, but I am counting on it getting as deeply and as much into all the crooks and crannies as possible. Look at that. Get yourself a bunch of regular popsicle sticks, the minis, and then these little guys here. Aren't these great? I don't know. 750 lifetime supply. When these are gone, I will surely be gone. They're neat. They got a nice little pointy tip on one end, a nice little radius if you're making really small fillets somewhere. Handy. How's it look? It's moving. It's perfect. That's it. That is it. I like how that one looks. Okay, it gets easy now, man. Working on the inside. Oh yeah. I'm going to be in a little bit of trouble right up here because that rear, I keep wanting to call that the front. The rear mount gets really close to the bottom. So we might have to come in with a Dremel later maybe and tidy up a little bit of the epoxy. It might be in the way, but I think I had that clean out of the screen again, didn't I? Yeah, I'm trying to focus on it, trying to show you all at the same time. Look at what a lousy job I did there. Now part of me is saying that I should run a little bit of epoxy around each one of those nuts to hold them on there real good, right? No, why waste the weight? They'll stay. They just got to stay there long enough for me to tighten the screws down, and that's all I really care about. There you go. We've got kind of a pretty looking little fillet on the inside. A little bit uglier fillet on the outside where it was hard to do in the boat. But I do believe that motor's going nowhere. I lost track of what I was doing over here, and I think I put too much right there where that motor mount comes down. I'm just going to push some of that away. Now guess what? We're almost done. Yeah, for real. We'll just set that aside. We'll let that set. Your motor mount is finished. Go build your stuff. While this is setting, you can go cut some wood. All right? Man, here we go.